these people. A couple of weeks ago, it was actually when I was in Africa, I got in my heart to do this. It was called From Pit to Palace. And this particular one, as we did the one last week, is handling success and failure. How many have had some success in their life? How many have had some failure in their life? So how do we handle that? How do we move ahead? Am I living my calling wherever I am? I'm talking at your job, I'm talking at your neighborhood, but am I living my calling? And I just pray right now, Father, that we will start walking out our callings. We won't sell you short, God, but we're going to believe big. Amen? Another saying that just came to me was, if it's not working at home, I wrote this in there, if it's not working at home, don't export it. How many know family is a big deal? How many know friends you have come and go, but your family you're going to have with you for a long time? Right? So I want to make things work at home before I export them. My natural situation. God's plan is to use the Jesus type to save the world like he did in Genesis 41, which is the story we're going to be talking about, Joseph and the Pharaoh. How many know that Jesus was used to reach the world, and now he's got you living through you to touch and affect the people around you? I want to say this statement. Failure and success are both tests of life. You know, when you have a failure, when things don't go right, that's a test of your life and God in you. Also, successes, when you do very well, it's a test of life. So are you going to prosper in both situations? Swing one more across, if you would. Failure is success in progress. How do you look at when you have a mistake? Is your life over? Spit by one more of those if you would. Never give up on something that you can't go a day without thinking about. You guys think about things every day? Do you have things that are vision, dreams that you have? Don't give up when those things are hard on your heart. Don't quit thinking about them. Winners never quit and quitters never win. Are you a winner? Because there's always a chance. It always seems impossible until it's done. You know, we've had this pandemic came in. Seemed like the government did everything they could to take us down, steal from businesses. We all know people that have lost businesses, lost lives through those kind of things. But what we've got to do is be able to stand no matter what. God, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep believing. God, when are you going to take care of this situation? When are you going to get the bad people that have done all that and take care of them? How many know justice is the Lord's? And I'm going to keep believing him and do what I'm called to do until that happens. Most of the important things in this world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Do you guys know anybody like that? They kept going, they kept trying when it seemed to be no way. People would tell them, you can't do that. This can't happen. I'm here to tell you that all things are possible. How many are ready to believe a God that all things are possible and the only requirement he put was that you believe? So Joseph was enslaved. It looks like they figured it down to about 13 years, both where he was a servant and then also in the jail, before he came in charge of all the business in Egypt. Be faithful with what's in front of you. God's looking for a few good people. I was going to say a few good men, but Isn't that the Marines thing? He's looking for a few good people. Dave Duell would say this statement: get started and don't quit. How many know sometimes it's easy to get started, but there's always opportunities to quit in that? Be faithful in opposition. You know, we can be faithful when the pressure's not on. We can be faithful when everything's going good. But what about when opposition hits you? When people come against you? When people cut down your character to friends of yours? Only Joseph, he only one Joseph that he could trust. You know, we all have friends we want to tell things to, but Joseph only had one person he could trust, and it was God. His brothers sold him. Slave master jailed him. His prophetic partners in prison, remember the baker and the butler, they both sold him out, forgot him. See, what we're talking about is faith in God in the long haul. It's being able to continue to go. It's being able to remain faithful when you've done it for a while. Through faith and patience, we inherit the promises. We've got to get past that, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to quit. Because if you go into a job or anything you have, you'll quit with that attitude. God, I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for the grace to empower me. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. Remember that song? God will make a way where there seems to be no way. How many are those kind of people you're believing? Genesis 22:12-14 says, and he said, this is Abraham that we're talking about here, and he said, do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. How many? This is Abraham, got a son, his only son, right? And now God's asking him to kill him, to sacrifice him. Now, what is this a type and shadow of? This is a type and shadow of Jesus, right? God, what, should you sacrifice Jesus? Of course, Jesus was sacrificed, but he brought the lamb up on there. He provided a sacrifice for him, so he didn't have to. But he needed to show him that he was willing to give up anything for him. Now, how far do we fall short of willing to give up anything for God as he tells us to do something? So I'm learning, as God, I believe, showing me to do something, I'm going to step out even though I can't figure it out with my logical mind. If you're here today, don't let logic be what guides you. Don't let you figuring it out guide you. How many start thinking about it and try to figure out things sometimes when God tells you to do it? Am I the only one? Come on. And so what I want you to see is the Lord will provide. The Lord provided the sacrifice that he needs. Is there something that you need that you're waiting on the Lord to provide? Because I call it into place right now. Abraham was all in. Nothing held back. I want results, but sometimes I'm not all in. How many think we should get that all in or nothing attitude when it comes to God? Words of wisdom. Take time for people who can do nothing for you. You know how you have those people that maybe they're well off, maybe could do a lot in the natural, and so we take time for those people, but people that maybe don't have those avails to them, we kind of don't have as much time. So what if we took time for people that can do nothing for us? You might one day need them to take time for you. Come on. Everyone is valuable in some way, even if it's to teach you something. The key to the palace may be the guy you share a jail cell with. Isn't that amazing? Two guys that were in jail with him happened to be the key to getting him where he was going. So you minister to them, and who knows what's going to happen later. You know, what happened with Nate, I remember just getting my passport back, and I just got back from somewhere, and Nate says, will you go to Zambia with me? I just got back, last month, but I need to go again to graduate the students. And I said, yeah, I'll go. Getting picked up by the head chaplain of all of the prisons there, got to ride around with him, and this is where the vision of what he's doing to take the nation all came into play. But this man, who was the head chaplain of all, was connected by a guy that met him that is into computer work and does some missions work in Zambia, and just happened to call Nate one day and says, hey, I hear you go to Zambia. You want to talk and meet? And I met this guy. He came to our church a few times. And, not anybody I would think would be a nation changer. How many know that some of those people that change nations don't look like they're a nation changer? But they are sometimes even a connection to a connection that we've got to pay attention to. And so I'm riding all through Zambia in this little truck that was a prison truck, and driving past guards, going all through the whole country and thinking, what am I doing here? But I was there to be a piece in connecting Andrew Wommack's Bible School to these prisons. The other day I got a picture back, and even the death row people, the people that are going to be there their whole life, are now going through Bible college, both Jim's and Andrew's Bible College. They've started the first one. How many know that's the start of taking 52 cities in a nation?
Thank you, Lord.
What's your part? How do you play? Are you faithful with what God's given you to do? Maybe it's not big enough for you. Hey, you do your part, man. Don't chase the palace. It will chase you. You may discover the palace is not the success you thought it would be anyway. How many of you ever sought after climbing the ladder, trying to go to the ladder of success only to find out you were on the wrong building? How many know the success that you think you're going after doesn't always turn out to be the success you thought it would be? Come on. Avoid the palace as long as you can, because when you get there, the responsibility is huge. Man, it's just like it hits, and you didn't realize the things you'd have to come up with and the responsibility that you would have. You know, we just got back from Malawi and the crusade there, and you see it going off, and it seems to be pretty smooth, and all these people are getting saved, all these miracles are happening, but very few people get to see the behind the scenes of what's really going on. Of the guy that he paid to advertise on this truck that drove through town with the sound equipment and all these posters. All of a sudden, the price this guy told him now just went way up. And this other guy, hey, can you play 2 songs? And they play 5 songs. Or this guy that said he would let you through the border now wants $1,000 so you can get through the border. I say all that because when you think you got there, the responsibility changes a lot. Are you ready for the responsibility that comes with being faithful? Come on. Your greatest test is not in their failure, it is in your success. When you get blessed, when it's not hard anymore, when you've got more than enough, how are you faithful with that? Where you would do anything, come on, you would do anything if you could just get a chance. But now you're blessed, now you got a little money, maybe things are going well. Are you faithful with that? That's the test. You know, we get so many people that get into congressional or senatorial office, and man, they're wanting to change the nations, and next thing you know, a couple bribes come their way. Pretty soon they're in deeper than they thought. So are you faithful with what you got? Come on. Are you faithful with what little you have? People will mostly not celebrate your success unless it benefits them. They will use you or abuse you. You know what's amazing about Denise? Denise is always recommending people, blessing people. If another church has somebody that could benefit them, she'll say, man, yeah, go watch him. You'll really enjoy him. Where we've seen the opposite. We've seen where people, I can't let my people go anywhere else. What if they don't come to my church? You know, you got to bless people. If somebody gets a new car, are you happy for them? Are you saying, God, why didn't I get one? We're talking about attitudes here, aren't we? We're talking about being faithful with the small stuff, being happy when other people are blessed. This is a tough one. Who are you trying to impress? Ask yourself before you do anything or question, do I question others' motives? Do I question my motives? We've got to get to the heart of our motivations of why we do what we do. Are you ready to check your own motivations? Why do I want to do that? Why do I want to get next to this person that's important? You know, I remember one time we went to, maybe 3 years ago, we go to the ministers' conference every year at Andrews, and it seemed like all the speakers hit on this one thing about not promoting yourself. Seems like in the ministry world, we're all trying to get a gig. We're all talking to people, hoping that maybe they have us come to their church or to their ministry situation. And so they were all hitting this pretty hard. And I remember Andrew was talking about all the people that are trying to talk to him and come to him and introduce themselves. And so I remembered I stayed away from Andrew. I had John Mufwimbo was with me. And the next thing I knew, I'm talking to John, up walks Andrew to meet John, to talk. And so I was able to introduce him. So I got to watch in action what he just got done preaching. I know you've got to, if you're going to be a job or something, tell people what you can do. But what if you promoted others and not yourself? Could God take care of you? Could God open those doors that you needed? I'm trying to get us over to that place where we're totally trusting God in all these situations that we're in. Mark 4:11, the parable of the sower. And he said to them, to you it has been given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to those on the outside, things come in parables. Did God hide his wisdom for us or from us? Say for us. Come on. For us. So you got to get on the inside. And God, I'm trusting you. I'm going to understand your parables. I want you to reveal things to me. And stay out of your logical side that's causing you to try to figure everything out. When you're serving God, you have to do things by faith. And that means you're not going to always understand when you're taking steps of faith, is it? Now, Joseph's time to shine is coming up here. After the 13 years he spent as a servant, as he spent in the prison, all the rough things he did, he was promoted in everything he did. Remember, whatever you do, even if it looks like the bottom wrong, you're going to be promoted. You're the best one. You have favor. Is that the way it looks, whatever organization you're connected to? But Joseph's, it was his time to shine. That's coming up here. And I remember Dave Duell was getting ready for Arafat. How many heard that? he was asked by a friend of his that had a Israeli-Palestinian peace plan. And so they were invited, and Dave was asked to go, and he went with this man and his son and another gentleman. And so they suited up and off they flew to Tunis, Tunisia. And they flew in, they met with Arafat. You know, they walked through the airport, and some lady walked them right through all the guards. They went to their hotel room, and he says, in an hour, the chairman will send a car to pick you up. So they jumped in, hit their hotel, they dressed up, and this car picked them up. And he said, I knew I was getting close because I started seeing more men with machine gun on the street corners. Got in that place. They finally got their opportunity. His man shared the peace plan. And he turned to Dave and said, hey, Dave, tell him what you do. And Dave said, if I get that opportunity, I'm not going to blow it. Come on. How many think of being in front of somebody that's important like that? God told him, you've practiced your whole life for moments like this. Are you ready if you're put in front of somebody like that? Yasser Arafat. You know, this isn't the guy you think about being in front of, is it? I mean, this guy was killing people, and you think, what do I do? He said when they were praying for him, he had this little sidearm down in there, and while they were praying for him, he thought, I could take this guy out and end this problem right now. But they prayed for him. They believed God. And so he started operating. He started calling out miracles. I mean, right and left, people were getting healed. To the point that this lady with this buzzer was calling people from all floors of this building, and it would turn into a miracle service in the PLO building. I mean, how could you have put those many guys together by advertising this? You couldn't have. He says, bring them up, bring them up. And he said, I've had times where I've seen a lot of people healed, but God healed them all. God healed them all. I'm just letting you know, are you preparing so if God sets you in front of somebody, you're ready to take steps of faith? Act on what God's created you to do. Come on now. So I'm going to start into this story out of Genesis 41. Pardon? Jesus. And what you've got to understand about this story, I'm going to have to go through some of it because it's a long story, chapter 41. But what happened was that the Pharaoh had a dream. He had an extreme dream, okay? And he woke up and he couldn't figure any of this out. What was this dream? And so he called on all of his magicians and all of his wise men, and none of them could figure it out. So as he's asking who can figure this out, well, I think it was his baker. Let's see what it was here. Called a dream. He dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. Now there was a young man, Hebrew man, with us there, a servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. And each man interpreted according to his own dream, and it came to pass just as he interpreted it for us. So if it happened, he restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. They shaved him. They changed his clothing. And he came to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and there was no one who could interpret it. But I have heard said that you can understand a dream and interpret it. Now let's see Joseph's response in verse 16. It says, So Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of the dream to interpret it. Now, what are you taking credit for and what are you giving credit for? If God does something through you, are you giving God the credit? What you see through all of Joseph did, he would always, God's in me. God's given this information. God's blessing us. We have to make sure that you know it's God that gets you before people. It's God that's the one that's prospering you, blessing you. The moment you start taking the credit yourself, man, you start going down the wrong roads. God was able to move Joseph in one motion from the pit to the palace. But it took 13 years of being faithful. Actually, before that. Because Joseph was getting these dreams when he lived back with his father. We questioned last week whether or not Joseph should have shared all those dreams about his brothers and his fathers. But God uses circumstances, doesn't He? He can get us to where we're going. Sometimes it might take a minute longer. But I say that to say this. Where God's called you to be, does it take a long time sometimes? Come on. So I'm looking at this 13 years. I'm looking at the Hebrew children in Egypt, 430 years, and then another 40 years because they couldn't believe God after that. So I say this partly that some of the length of time that's been increased is sometimes our fault. But nonetheless, are we willing to be faithful if it takes longer than we think? Or do we want a microwave miracle? We want to pray and poof, the genie pops out our little answer. How many ever noticed with those genie stories that those things they wish for turned out to be bad in most cases for them? I'm saying this because working with God takes time. Am I willing to be faithful? Am I willing to have a good attitude? Am I willing to be happy? Thank you, Lord. The joy of the Lord is my strength on a daily basis until I'm waiting to walk in where God's called me to be. And I'll say this, usually a lot of things go on to get me there. And I'm looking to Joseph's whole life. He was 30 years old now to find out where he was stepping into. Faithfulness over the long haul. Joseph prospered in Egypt. Daniel prospered in Babylon. No matter how corrupt the government was. Yes. Can we prosper no matter how corrupt our government is? Are we going to look at the circumstances of what the government's been putting out and what they're trying to do right now? Are we going to prosper no matter how bad it got? How would you like to prosper? You know, my brother is over some salesmen, different places in the world, and one of the places they're over is the Ukraine. And so they're doing business in Ukraine right now. And they said some days they have to shut down for a few days or a week. Then they pop back up, start doing it. So God can take care of us anywhere, under any set of circumstances that you might be in front of. Faith and patience, Hebrew 9:12. It says that beloved, we are confident or better things concerning you. Yes, things and accepting salvation. Let me put my glasses on. This is either some tiny print here, dog bag. Sitting there trying to read this. Accompany salvation. We speak in this manner, for God is not unjust to forget your work and labor of love, which you have shown towards His name, in that you have ministered to the saints and do minister. We desire that each one of you show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope until the end. Boy, till the end? That you do not become sluggish, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promise. So what I saw there is it's a work of labor. I saw that a labor of love. I saw that it might take diligence. Is diligence, what's that mean to you? Might having to put on a little elbow grease sometimes to continue on. And then it goes on here to say, full assurance of hope until the end. How many can do it until it gets tough? But he's saying do it until the end no matter here. And it goes on to say, and we desire that each one of you show the same diligence and full assurance and hope until the end, that you do not become sluggish, but imitate those through faith and patience. You know, I've had some people in my life that I've seen use faith, and I've watched some of the most amazing miracles I've ever seen. Getting to travel with Dave and Andrew around the world. Being able to watch through their faith and patience inherit the promises that God gave them. It's going to take a minute. Come on. Are you committed to life of victory now? To the walk in love? Do we get to choose to walk in love? Romans 5:21 says this, whosoever the law entered that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, grace abounded much more. What about someone else? So what? You are not under the law, but under grace. Somebody say, I'm not under the law, but I'm under grace. Where sin abounds, grace abounds less. So where what's going on in the world right now, it seems like over the last 2.5, 3 years, sin abounded. So does that tell me grace is going to be or is abounding all the more? We maybe can't see the results just yet, but I'm thanking God for those circumstances and situations. Come on. We've got to have grace of God to face today, not tomorrow. We're talking about now. You know, Corrie ten Boom says this. Dad, you get the ticket. When do you get the ticket when you go on a train? When you get on the train. You get the ticket when the conductor comes. You hand him the ticket. I don't know if you ever had one. You give him when the conductor comes. Is when you get tickets. So we're talking about the now. We're not talking about the past. We're not talking about the future. We're talking about living now. How many are ready to live now? Come on. You know, I'm thinking of the Germans who lost lots of pride because of the Reformation. But then brought the darkest day of the world they had ever seen. The revelation is here that patience of the saints standing under pressure without wavering. If, you know, these people under this Reformation and then got to watch Hitler do what he did, and then a lot of Christians didn't speak up because of what was going on with the Jews. Are we going to speak up? Are we going to be pressured if things start turning a certain way? Here's what I'm saying. You got to get this attitude right now, no matter where you are, that you're going to stand and believe God, stand up for God, stand up for people. You got to do it before something happens. Because if you don't, then when something happens, you'll bail, you'll give up, you'll quit. How many are ready to stand and believe God? Come on. Hope is confident expectation. Capacity for calm endurance. Patience is faith over time. You exercise like a muscle. Talks about worketh. Romans 15:13 says, may the God of your hope so fill you with the joy and peace of believing through the experience of your faith, that the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound and be overflowing, bubbling over with hope. How many are ready to bubble over with hope?
Yeah, let's do that.
Come on. The God of your hope. God, I thank you that we're going to be bubbling over with hope. That when we look at whatever situation that's going on, we're just going to be hoping, bubbling with that hope, God. Now I'm going to move down. If you feel empowered, you won't feel impatient. How many know the Holy Spirit has empowered us? The trouble I've got into is when I felt impatient, that I needed to act, I needed to get something done. I wanted to hurry up and get it over with. Denise, is this true? So I've got to feel empowered knowing that God's taking care of these situations. Ephesians 6:14 says, "Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace." How many know all these are examples of things I'm putting on because I'm trusting in what God has done? Come on. The shield of faith with which you were able to quench the fiery darts. How many have got their shield of faith on? How many know whatever the enemy is throwing at you, you've got the ability to stop what he's doing? Come on. How many know he can throw some fiery darts at you sometimes? Come on. That's right. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to the end with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. You know, I'm thinking about this, and I know we don't physically put on armor, but am I putting on the things that God has given me to be able to walk when times get tough? To be able, if prison, not knowing when you're going to get out, the hopelessness of that. You know, that's why it's so amazing with what's going on with L3 in Zambia. This is being taken to prisons where there is no hope, where people either on death row or they're not getting out. And they started asking things to Nate the other day. He sent me a little thing. You might be able to help me with this, Denise. But so we can graduate from this school? How many know if you were a guy that was on death row or you knew you weren't going to get out and you had the chance of graduating a Bible school?
So cool.
Could that give you hope when there seems to be no hope? And then connecting with the families of these people that come and see them, and if they get much, it's because a family brought them. I could go into all the bad situations they're in, but we've got this armor on and we can walk in it. Establish your heart in righteousness. What is your heart established in? Righteousness, or right standing with God. God sees me right before Him. Are you establishing that, or are you still trying to work for your righteousness?
Not a failure.
You're not a failure?
Not a failure.
Come on, how does God see you, Denise?
Yes. Righteous before.
Does that give you confidence to walk right in to His throne room? Okay? You don't have to worry about getting your head cut off, walking into the normal king's place. Come on. Now, I'm going to take this place here, and I'm going to jump in. We were talking in Genesis chapter 41. This story is in over about 5 or 6 chapters. And so he tells the story. The Pharaoh does it. Verse 17, and the Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Behold, in my dream I stood at the bank of the river. Suddenly 7 cows came up out of the river looking fine and fat." How many know that? That's fine and fat cow is good. And they fed in the meadows. Then behold, the 7 cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and gaunt. Such ugliness as I have never seen in the land of Egypt. And that's an ugly cow. Come on. And the gaunt, ugly cows ate up the first 7 and the fat cows. Come on. And they had eaten them. No one would have known that they even ate them. Pop that down. Lost my place there. So what he's seen is the dream of the fat cows, the dreams of the skinny cows, and the skinny cows ate the fat cow. And then right behind that dream, he had the dream of the grains of wheat. And he saw 7 of those. How many know 7's God's perfect number? So he had 7 wheat, and then he had 7 years of bad wheat. blew away. And Joseph started sharing the dream with him, which is what I'm wanting to get to. Let's start at,
Dreams of Pharaoh are one.
right, what verse is that?
25.
Okay, so let's start there. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of the Pharaoh are as one. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years, and the dreams are one. And the 7 thin ugly cows are which came after, and the 7 years, them are the 7 years, and the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind of the 7 years of famine. So you guys seeing Joseph's giving this vision. He's sharing what's going to happen. God revealed it to him after the Pharaoh couldn't get any of this information out of him. And then Joseph even goes in to saying you need to find somebody. Find somebody that can then take this grain and store it up. 1/5 of it for the first 7 years. So when you have the 7 years of famine, people won't starve and die. You know, does that sound like Jesus coming along to prepare us for what we're going through? He's preparing us. You know, I don't know how you can say it. I was just thinking about this morning. But through the years that the nation's been kind of messed up, it's kind of like that famine. And like we were being prepared before that, but all of us weren't paying attention necessarily. And now we've got these poor years, these famine years that are happening. And so we've got to be that person that's getting wisdom from God on how to act and take care of this right now. Yeah. I want you to think about this. No matter what the government does, no matter what the economy does, God can take care of us. You got to get that in your heart. You got to get that in your mind right now. You can't give up. God is going to take care of us. Amen?
Thank you, Lord.
So verse 37 says, so the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as this man in whom the Spirit of God is? The next thing I want you to see here, are you a person that people can see the Spirit of God in? God, I pray that we're people on our jobs, in our places we go, clubs, neighborhoods, that people can see that we have the Spirit of God in us. And then he went on to say, and Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as the Spirit of God is? And 39 says, then Pharaoh said to Joseph, insomuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and as wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. 41. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Now we're talking about a guy that's been in prison and a slave for about 13 years. We're talking about a person that's 30 years old, but somebody that believed God. And now he was being prepared in all that he went through to be over all of Egypt. Are you putting yourself in a place that where you're being trained, you're being raised up, that God's wanting to set you over something in this last days operation that's happening? You believe that, don't you, Denise? How many believe Denise is being set up for the last days operation?
You know, Dennis, we wrote that little book probably 15 years ago. That's 15 years old, and it's the story of Joseph. And I just believe it's for such a time as this.
Come on.
Joseph fed the world, that God's positioned us to feed the world.
Come on. You know, I want you to see this. It went on to say, and Pharaoh took the signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him with fine garments of linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. You know, I was just looking at some of that. Pharaoh gave Joseph almost like a God bestowing authority on Jesus. He bestowed on Joseph second in charge of the whole nation. Actually, further than that. The signet ring represented what you stamp is just like what I stamp. How many have ever seen, what's the card you can have that you can use the most money? Is it Visa Platinum or something? What is that? Anybody know? What's got the biggest limit on it? What he got here was the biggest limit. When he stamped something, it was done. It was paid for. It was over with. You know, God has given you authority in his kingdom to use the things of the kingdom, to advance it, to prosper us. You have been given authority. You have been given a signet ring, if you will, to use things and finance things and get done. You know, to just get back from this crusade I saw, money had to be distributed right and left all the time for this guy and that guy and that guy. You know, to advance God's kingdom, it's going to take some more money, isn't it? Yes. So we've been given that signet ring, and we've got to see that way. You were given a gold chain, which represented the highest distinction. You need to start seeing yourself as distinct. You represent the kingdom of God. Anybody here? Amen. Come on. Amen. And you have a robe. The robe of righteousness was put on you. He put the finest garments on him. Seeing yourself with garments. Now I'm going to say this, and I don't want to embarrass anybody. My wife would tell me stuff I put on sometimes bad. But we need to start dressing like we're king's kids. We need to start prospering. We need to look like we've got something going on. Right? I got a lot of good comment out of that, didn't I? All right, come on. And so I saw this. I started seeing what he put on him, what he gave him. And he had him ride on the second chariot, which he had. And he cried before him, "Bow the knee." So he set him over the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no man may lift his hand or foot in the land of Egypt." And Pharaoh called Joseph's name, say it, Denise, Zanath-Paneah. And when I got that, when I looked it up, it wasn't a big thing. People didn't have a lot of really what it was, but it called life or support of life. You're being brought here. You are the one that's supporting this nation to life. Yes. What if that's you that's out there? Good. And then it said, and he gave him a wife, his daughter, of a priest of, the priest of On. So Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Joseph, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of the Pharaoh and went throughout the land of Egypt. Now, I just wanted to say things before, as I close here, I just want to say this. We're being challenged today. And let me say, this is a little harder to do than normal just because of what's happened this last week. And so I'm not going to push with my effort or talk louder just because, but I pray that the Spirit of God apprehends you. That the Spirit of God gets a hold of you and you start seeing yourself like a world changer. You start seeing yourself in this time that we're in right now. No matter what you do, what your job is, you're going to prosper at it. That you're going to be in that place right now where if somebody says they're sick, you say, "Hey, no problem, man. We're going to pray for you." When there's a financial need, you're going to say, "Hey, I got it." You're going to see yourself with a signet ring from God, making changes in this place. We're moving into the Christmas season, if you will, here to December, coming just a couple days. And I want you to see yourself as not one that, well, I don't have enough, God, I can't. No, you are a king's kid. And I'm saying you've been given a signet ring. You've been given a gold chain, distinction. You've been given a chariot to ride. You've been given everything that you need to do what you've been called to do. Now, how many here say, "I believe that"? I'm going to believe that. I'm going to meditate on it. I'm going to get it down in me. This is the time you've given me, God, to change the influence of the things, my job, the people I'm around, in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord. Father, I just pray right now, revelation of people that are hearing this, of seeing themselves like you just made them, second in charge. You're the one that gave them wisdom, God, how to do it. You're the one that is going to cause them to have a section, a neighborhood, a city, a town, God, that will have everything it needs to prosper. The wisdom you're giving us. God, Joseph didn't dream this stuff. This was wisdom you gave him. So I pray right now for the God's wisdom for each person in here, each person listening to this broadcast. I pray for wisdom. Pray for wisdom, God, that you're giving us to touch our neighborhood, a block, a city, a state, a nation. God, I thank you for that. As I watched God use Nate get this plan to reach Zambia, I saw that God gives people wisdom to take nations, to prosper them. As I watched in Malawi, a group of people from their government show up to the hotel we were, and how Huchi got to meet this lady that was, like fourth in charge of all the nation. And she told them what she did in Zambia, and they said, can you do that here? I watched how God just used a person just like it was an ambassador for God. I think I'm calling you out as an ambassador. I'm calling you out as an ambassador in the name of Jesus. How many received that? Thank you, Lord. Father, we thank you for that. We thank you that revelation of that is happening now in the mighty name of Jesus. Everybody said amen. Thank you, Lord. Officially, we're stopping the message and so forth, but I believe God wants to do a few things here.